Welcome back to our Line Opinion panelists. New data from the State Public Education Department shows student enrollment in public schools continues to steadily decline. Now, this year's data shows student populations in Albuquerque have dropped by more than 9,000 students in only the past 4 years. Santa Fe, Rio Rancho, and Espanola are all seeing drops as well. We'll get into the pandemic's impact on these numbers. Hold tight there. But the fact is, many parents are shifting, literally sending their children to private schools, charter schools, or obviously choosing to homeschool as well as an option. David, should we be concerned that this trend is continuing now in 2023? Is this just a blip, or how do you see this?
I think we should be concerned. I think that, people vote different ways, and the way that they're voting about sending their kids to public school is they're not doing it, and so, the Santa Fe paper had an interesting thing talking about how a lot of elementary school maybe could be, economic in the sense that young families cannot afford to live in neighborhoods in Santa Fe, so they've gone other places. I think that's probably true, but then again, if that were completely true, Rio Rancho would be overrun because all the young families tend to go to Rio Rancho. I think it's really important to recognize and that, state government officials and all government officials should take note. People just have no belief and no faith in public schools. I think that's a complete and utter disaster for a democracy, no matter how you look at it.
I'm going to follow up on that a little bit later, but I'm going to get Laura in on this one. As you know, Laura, state funding for districts is based on the number of students in that district. So this is a real jam for districts. How can they appeal to students and parents? And if they don't, they just automatically lose the money and everybody else loses out? Something else that doesn't seem quite right.
Right. I mean, the funding formula has always been based on enrollment, and that's why they have enrollment dates or student enrollment dates at certain periods throughout the year to confirm that the students have remained in the school district or in the schools, right? So it's tied absolutely to funding formulas. But I think to your question, what can the schools do to, bring back some of those students? I think that they can improve overall school student achievement. I think student achievement, if they were to focus more on the academics, make sure that students are getting a quality education, really target those students and take a look at, why are those students now choosing to go to private schools or even homeschool? That's going to be an important analysis that has to be done, I think, at the local level, at the school level, as well as the school district level. And we also see in some of the rural parts of the state, especially those that are able to move across state lines, the southeastern part of the state where we have a lot of folks in the oil and gas business, they routinely spend a lot of time in Texas anyway for work. They could, move there more easily than maybe other places. Same with the eastern or the western part of the state and Arizona. There's folks that and in fact, there's people who live in the eastern part of the state that go to school in Arizona in some cases. And then even up in the border with Colorado, we see some of that as well. Right. So I think all of that is a reflection on just what kind of quality education are we providing here in New Mexico? And if we're getting this reputation, which we have had for a long time, but we're getting it more at the school level, that there just isn't very many opportunities for students, people are going to choose to go elsewhere, and that's understandable.
Laura, let me ask you this before I get to Dan. I hear this a lot from folks who support public schools and the public school system. This idea of creating an education gap, meaning the education you can get outside of the public school system is better than what's in the public school system, and there's long-term ramifications for that. Do you have that sense as well, or is this a worry that's just not based on much?
I think it's a worry. I mean, I think we should all be worried about what this means for the vast majority, I think, of students in New Mexico, in particular, lower income or folks who don't have the ability to just simply go to private school or to even homeschool. I mean, I think that there is a disparity there that will exacerbate that gap, right? There's people who have the means and the education, two-person home, both parents educated, where one of them is able to take on the responsibility of homeschooling children that you don't see in low income communities. And so that will create a further disparity in that education gap and wage gap and everything else. So public education needs to be, I think, continuing to be a priority for everybody. I'm a product of public education. I was, Deming Wildcat for, the entire time. But I see what some of these other schools, even back then, provided and what they provide now. And it's huge, huge differences in resources, where you have schools that have a lot more opportunity than some of the rural schools. But that doesn't mean that there isn't an opportunity for a quality education, and that there aren't opportunities to excel and go into higher ed as well. But it has to be, we just have to continue to put focus into making sure there's resources available for those students.
Daniel, it seems pretty clear folks are talking about a value proposition here, to use a business term. And if they don't find value in it, they'll go somewhere else to find that value. How concerned should we be in the overall pot of education that we're having this split now for parents?
Well, I think we should be greatly concerned, especially since we're 50th in the nation in educating our kids. 51st, I think we're 51st. One of the Washington, D.C. actually produces a better outcome in education than New Mexico does. We used to huddle around 47, 48. We've gotten all the way down to 51st now. And so I think it's time for elected officials to take heed of what they're hearing, right? The state's offering a product, and an overwhelming majority of people now, or a large number of people, don't like the product that's being offered. You have two choices. You either cram people into the product that you tell them they have to have, or you listen to what your clients want and you navigate through and you provide what they want. And I think right now that there's a lot of schools in this state that are not providing, a lot of school districts that are not providing what their clients want. And they're finding alternatives, whether it's through private schools, whether it's through parochial schools, whether it's through online distance learning. I mean, that's the thing. We did this with school vouchers when I was in. We talked about this gap. We've been talking about this gap for years. Yep. We've been talking about how options like school vouchers will help low-income folks, because they'll finally have an option to go to a private school should they want it. They really don't need a private school today. Every kid on their phone nowadays can take classes. They can take classes from top-rated schools in Boston and New York, living in Cloudcroft, New Mexico. We couldn't do that when we were younger. So either the state's going to catch up and realize, listen, we have a serious problem with the product we're putting out there, and we're going to take serious steps to correct that for our clients, or they're going to continue to see this mass exodus that's happening. The funding formula, people are going to point to the funding formula and say it's a problem. It's really not a problem as much as it's an eye opener, right? You're going to start seeing schools where they're running to, like Rio Rancho, they're going to get more money, build schools. That's right. And down the road, you're going to see schools that they don't, they've got more room than they've got kids to put in there. And so if we don't take this as elected officials, a step back and say, okay, where's the migration? Number one. Number two, why is there a migration, right? Why is everybody leaving that school to go to this school? And we got to figure that out. Then we're just going to keep repeating these same problems. And so I think maybe finally, for the first time, the people are speaking, and I think elected officials are going to have to hear them.
Good points there. On the other end of the spectrum for education is universities. Interesting point here. Universities across the state, I don't know, they appear to be on the other end of the problem with a weird increase in enrollment in the last year at UNM, NMSU, and Highlands. In fact, UNM's first enrollment increase in 10 years, and we have been declining in university enrollment for a long time, and UNM's thinking the biggest reason is the New Opportunity Scholarship that goosed things along here. I'm curious where you're coming from on higher education. What's the impact on dropping public school enrollment and how it manifests in higher ed down the road?
Yeah, I mean, I do think that there is a potential impact there as you follow students through the process, right? I mean, for many students, there's going to be a percentage of students that seek to go out of state, seek to and have the grades and are competitive for schools, back east or other higher ranking schools. But I think the vast majority, and even those students who are competitive for other schools, they're looking at local colleges and universities.
Right. That's right.
For a number of reasons: closer to home, closer to parents, financial reasons. There's all kinds of reasons for that. So as that public enrollment drops, it could have a pipeline impact, I think, on colleges and universities locally. What's interesting, though, with the Opportunity Scholarship is it now opens up, obviously an opportunity for so many other people, maybe folks who have been out for a while, to rethink sort of where they are and come back into school. So I definitely think that there's a connection between the offering of the Opportunity Scholarship and the increased enrollment in universities and colleges. I think that's a good thing overall. And I can tell you that from a business perspective, and as we try to recruit companies from out of state to come for more economic development, that's an area that they're going to be looking at very closely. Like, what kind of pipeline do we have of educated, talented people coming out of colleges and universities, even if it's only a 2-year degree, who can start to fill some of these jobs. I mean, that is an area that I think we have historically been challenged with. Like, we're not able to be as competitive as other states, but this has the not to be so repetitive, the opportunity we have to try to get more students into those pipelines and try to recruit more businesses.
You know, it's interesting you just mentioned that, Laura, and we're going to wrap this up there because it has been argued for years in this studio and other places for a good long time that if and when we stitch junior high school and high school education to college education, meaning if you're on a track to be, say, a plumber or an electrician or a welder and make a ton of money, that you don't need to have a 4-year degree necessarily. You can do something in that university structure that puts you out into the earning world very quickly. Perhaps this is what's going to goose us down the road here on that too. Who knows? All right, thanks again to our Line Opinion panelists. We'll be back here for one final discussion on a housing shelter opening here in Albuquerque and its impact on the debate over safe outdoor spaces. That's in about 10 minutes.